Okay, this is the Brian Hornback Experience. This is episode 73, and I've got another candidate that's running for Knox County elective office in 2020. She's on the Republican ballot May the 3rd. Early vote starts April 13th through the 28th. It's out in the 7th District, which is out in Powell and Halls and anywhere in between. And that's Sherri Garrett. Sherri, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good. So you have decided to run. Patty Bounds has served that district for 8 years. She ran twice unopposed, which I'd like to know Patty's secret on that.
Me too.
I've never been unopposed in anything I've ever done. But but anyway, so you're running for that seat. You do have an opponent in the Republican primary, which we won't mention that because this is your time.
Okay.
And so you are a native of the 7th District. I understand your family was from Halls, and about 9 years ago you moved to Powell. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I grew up here in Knox. I lived here all my life. My parents were born and raised here. My grandparents were born and raised here. My mom's side of the family all lives in Halls, has forever. When I was about 6, we moved to South Knoxville, so I was raised in South Knoxville, but spent weekends and summers in Halls just about every chance that we got. I loved being up there. And 9 years ago, we moved over to Halls. We just got back we lived in Ohio for about a year. My husband and I did. Moved back and moved over into a little bit kind of between Halls and Powell, and then we bought our house about 7 years ago.
Fantastic. So you've been in Powell, but now for about the last 30 years, you've been a practicing nurse, correct?
Yes, for 32 years, I've been a practicing nurse. I'm a licensed practical nurse.
Fantastic. So, that really does, I think that profession really does kind of lend itself to school board. I mean, obviously, as a nurse, you're serving people who are obviously ill or wanting to be better than they are, I guess. And so 32 years of that, you've been used to dealing with people on a one-on-one basis and providing service. So, what made you decide that? Granted, school board is not a full-time job; it's a part-time service job. What made you once you found out Patty Bounds was not going to seek re-election? What made you decide that, hey, this is the time for Sherri Garrett to throw her hat in the ring and become the next school board member from the 7th District?
Honestly, I felt led to it. I've been going to county commission and then school board for the past 2 years now, and seeing what's going on, and just realized that we've been paying, and I myself have been paying far too much attention to what's going on federally, and not enough to local issues, not enough to local elections. That's where it matters. That's where you make a difference in the community.
Well, those are the decisions, the local decisions. Everybody can talk about national talking points all they want to, but it's the local decisions that affect it. We can't control our federal income tax percentages, but you can control your other taxes. And with the school board, granted, you don't have school board doesn't have taxing authority, but those decisions that impact students and families are impactful. I served 20 years ago, which seems like forever ago, but on the school board for one term. So on your website, which we will give several times during this Brian Hornback Experience, that's Sherri Garrett. It's SherriGarrett, FORSCHOOLBOARD.com. Sherri Garrett for schoolboard.com, and also you can find her on Facebook. So some of the issues you've talked about on your website is that 39% of the Powell students are proficient in math and 36% in reading. And obviously we know that the legislature's talked about the fact that we're not, they're going to start retaining students in the 3rd grade that aren't proficient in reading. So, have you had a chance to really kind of examine that, or is that something you're going to work with the school board members to try to get all the other all the other schools up? I mean, I know you also talk about the looking at the curriculum, and I did that during my time on the school board. So it's just let's just kind of talk about that. Do you feel like Powell is trending above the rest of Knox County? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously it depends on the area.
Right.
Halls and Powell are trending, I think, a little bit lower.
Mm.
Halls is higher, a little bit higher, but Powell is a little bit lower, which is very concerning because we've got a very, it's a great area and the schools are fantastic. I've talked with a lot of parents who attend here and they're very happy with the schools here. But there's some reason why, and we've got to figure it out.
Right.
Why we're trending a little bit lower in Halls and Powell.
Well, and the good news is that within the next, by the time you take office, which will be September the 1st, we'll have a new superintendent of schools. The schools just went through a selection process. Bob Thomas is retiring, and we're going to have Dr. John Ryswick, who will be the next superintendent. So, I'm sure as the former chief, well, he's the current chief academic officer now, but I'm sure he's looking at those numbers too, and I'm sure he's concerned. Also let's talk about safety. You talk about that. Obviously, we right now in the city, the Knoxville Police Department have officers in the schools. The Sheriff's Department has officers in schools, and then of course, Knox County Schools has a fairly large Knox County School security force. I'm sure you're for safety in the schools, and do you think that we have the right amount of officers? Do you think we need to expand that? And also just there's been some discussion in the community about possibly pulling the Sheriff's Department, KPD out and relying on just Knox County officers, which by the way don't have arresting power. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm absolutely committed to keeping our SRO officers, but I would like to see KPD and the Sheriff's Department remain in the schools. And I think that's on a school-by-school basis. I think some schools need more security and some schools don't need as much, but I think we need to just take each school case by case and see what's going on in each school. Obviously, in the East Community, but Austin East, they need more security. Halls and Powell doesn't seem to have a lot of issues with that, although I think there was a couple of recent issues in Powell High School.
Right.
With some fighting, some kids fighting. I think a couple of kids ended up in the hospital.
Well, it's kind of amazing that middle school and high school students, what does happen in middle school and high school is far more severe than when you and I were in high school.
It certainly is.
And so I certainly think that I think that it's probably more imperative too to keep some security there because it's not safe for the staff that have to try to break up those fights. And all those kind of things. So you're getting a new Adrian Burnett in the 7th District. They're replacing the Adrian Burnett, interestingly enough, was built as a temporary building when Cedar Bluff Elementary was built. When I was on the school board 20 years ago, I helped get us to the point of deciding exactly where we're going to build Cedar Bluff Elementary. I got us to the point of the architect and the design, but I rolled off the board before they broke ground. So but both those schools, and it seems like there was one other. Seems like there were 3 schools built back when Adrian Burnett, Cedar Bluff Elementary, Cedar Bluff Primary at that time, were built. That they were. Oh, and it was Farragut Primary, I believe. All 3 were built as primary. Were built as temporary structures. I'm sorry. And so Farragut Primary got replaced a long time ago. Cedar Bluff Primary got replaced, and they merged the intermediate in with the primary, creating Cedar Bluff Elementary about 20 years ago. So now, finally, Adrian Burnett is, thanks to Patty's the last part of her 8 years, she and Commissioners Justin Biggs and the other commissioners, Charlie Bustler, finally have Adrian Burnett in the process. So that's good news for the 7th District. What are the other? Do y'all have any overcrowding issues? Do you have some buildings that need some upkeep? Yeah.
Halls High School is currently undergoing some renovation, and they had to expand it because they found some issues that it was supposed to just be a facelift, but they found some issues with mold and some other issues that they actually had to go back to county commission and ask for some more money because it was a lot more detailed than what they thought was going to happen.
I saw. I think that was at the last commission meeting, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah,
it certainly
I
was.
saw that.
Powell just recently had a huge upgrade, and they just recently had a new cooler system put in. So we're excited about that. Bricky McLeod Elementary is getting a renovation.
Wow.
Obviously, you said Adrian Burnett is
getting a new one.
Getting a new school altogether.
Right.
Really excited about that. And I know Powell Elementary really needs something I'm going to fight for too. They really need some upgrades. It's a tight area, so I'm not sure how we can expand it, but they're using temporary buildings, and that's never a great long-term solution.
Well, and what people don't understand about temporary buildings is that, temporary buildings are okay for what they're designed for, which is temporary purpose. The problem you get into, though, particularly as we continue to evolve in this 2022, 2024, is that, those schools aren't necessarily protected. You can't do it. You can't do a hard lockdown like you can on a, if you decide to lock down Powell Elementary. I mean, it's okay to send a message out to the portable to lock your doors, but I mean, they're not as secure as a brick and mortar permanent structure. So, that's that is obviously a concern. Teacher pay. Obviously, we have two different things. We have certified teachers, which those are the teachers in the classroom. Those are the ones that are licensed by the state to be teachers. They obviously have a pay scale and a pay structure. And then you have what's called the classified employees. Those are the custodians, the janitors, the educational assistants, the secretaries. Where do you think we are on pay? And what's your message to those folks about how the school board, hopefully in the next term, can look at pay and benefits? I mean, sometimes it's not always about pay. Sometimes I know sometimes they've been able to say, hey, we'll give you an extra 30 minutes of planning time or something. So I mean, again, it's not all about money. Sometimes it's about benefits. So have you had any discussions with some of the faculty and staff at the schools about that?
I haven't yet, but I do know that obviously our teachers are not getting paid enough, and neither is the support staff. We absolutely need to look at finding ways that we can increase their pay and increase their support, whether it's benefits or in other ways, getting more parent volunteers or other volunteers in the classrooms to help with the kids, tutoring with reading and math, and there's many ways that we can find, I think, to help support the teachers. But I definitely want to look at seeing how we can raise their pay, because it's nowhere near enough.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you and your husband bought in Powell, so I believe you are a mother. Now, did your kids go to Knox County schools?
I have 5 boys.
Oh, wow.
Yes, my 4 older boys went through Knox County schools. I homeschooled my youngest.
Okay.
All of them, I had 2 of them with that were special ed.
Sure.
So I went through the whole IEP 504 processes with them. All those wonderful meetings.
Yep, they can be long.
Oh yeah.
But
I have 10 grandchildren right now.
Wow.
And 5 of them are in Knox County schools.
Wow, that's fantastic. So that, I mean, I think that is important to note. I don't think we should pass up the fact that, as I've talked to a few other school board candidates, and I'm going to talk to. I've got 2 more coming up after you, but I think it is important that that folks who are products of the public school system and folks who are in fact have been, I mean, all 3 of our kids have gone through the public school system. I think that is important. I mean, you gotta, in my mind, you gotta kind of question somebody's need or want to serve on the public school board if in fact they haven't at least used some portion of the public school system. So what else is so how's your campaigning going? Are you knocking on doors? Do you have events coming? obviously this episode 73 is being recorded toward the end of March. Obviously, early voting starts April 13th through the 28th. Do you have some events coming up? What's your when you've got your spare time after work? What's your campaign activity look like?
Spare time. That's a good one.
Absolutely. I've been there, done that. I know.
Obviously, there's lots of meetings going on, Republican Club meetings. Albeit the Volunteer Women's Republican Club on Monday morning. There'll be the school board candidates.
Oh, wow. Speaking. So that's Monday, because this will post today, which is the 19th. So on Monday, March 21st, the Volunteer Republican Women, they meet at 12 noon at Buddy's Banquet Hall. If you haven't gotten your RSVP in for lunch, then you're out of luck. I think. I don't think unless you've got a sponsor. And when I say a sponsor, that means somebody that's in leadership in that club. You're probably just going to have to go watch. You're probably not going to be able to eat. But
exactly.
But yeah. So all the school board candidates going to be there, huh? I'm assuming all the Republican school board candidates.
All of those, Republican
right.
Primary. Would that have opponents? So.
Well, and that is interesting. Oh, okay, the ones that have opponents. Okay, so yes. that'll be easier to get through. So I'm totally forgot to even mention that. So this year is the first year that the state legislature changed. I guess last year that school board is to be partisan, Republican, Democrat. So have you been I kind of know the answer to this because I have a tendency to look up voting records. Are you a Republican?
I certainly am. I have been for all of my life. Although for years I consider myself independent. I've told myself I'll just vote for whoever I think is the most qualified for the job. Well, but I always ended up voting Republican.
Right. Well, and the funny thing about the Tennessee law, interestingly enough, is that you can go. I mean, there's nothing unless you decide to run for office. There's nothing wrong with you going and saying, well, in this primary, I want to vote Republican. In this primary, I want to vote Democrat. In this primary, I want to vote Republican. It only becomes an issue when you decide that you actually want to put your name as a Republican on a ballot. And so that's the only time it really becomes an issue. I've voted since I turned, you and I are close in age. I'm not going to tell what age we are. The only reason I know that is because I saw on your, either on your Facebook or your website what year you graduated high school. So anyway, you and I are close in age. And so I've of course, granted, I've been involved in politics since I was 16 years old. So I've not missed one single election, and I've always voted Republican primary. But that's beside the point. But, just the fact that as long as someone votes consistently, I don't necessarily have an issue with somebody if they do vote in another primary. I mean, last several years, the Democrat Party really hasn't been effective in Knox County, so they really haven't had a reason for people to vote in the Democrat primary. But that's beside the point. But I just find it interesting because I was able to. I ran, and I remember back in the early '90s when we did have partisan school board elections. We even had a partisan and an elected school superintendent.
I remember that, yes.
Yeah, up until 96. That's the law. The law changed in 92. Knox County held on to it till 96 because we had that opportunity. And Alan Morgan was the last elected superintendent. Actually, Alan Morgan from Powell at the time. And so now we're going back to the partisan elections, which I don't have a problem with. I just, as a Republican, I kind of want to make sure that Republicans are Republicans and that they've at least met the threshold. So I'm assuming you've met the threshold of being a bona fide Republican.
I have met the threshold of being a bona fide Republican.
Nice. Well, we're about 20 minutes in. Again, I want to encourage people to check out your website at Sherri Garrett and Sherri Garrett for schoolboard.com. Spell out FOR, schoolboard.com. You can also just do a Google search, I'm sure. And as long as you get the Sherri, which is SHERRI, and Garrett GARRETT, and then search for her on Facebook. I'm sure we'll be having you back because you have the Republican primary on May the 3rd, which again, early voting is April 13th through the 28th. And then when you make it out of that, then you have an opponent in the August, because you don't have a Democrat, you have an independent running. So you'll have another race to endure on August the 4th. And those early voting days are July 15th through the 30th. But I'm sure we'll have you back on, and by then you will have knocked on thousands and thousands and thousands of doors, and you will have talked to so many teachers that you'll be probably ready to just get it over with at this point, right?
Yes, I'll be out in the community today knocking doors too.
Good,
so.
Good, fantastic. Well, Sherri, I appreciate you coming on the Brian Hornback Experience. Anything else that I might have left out, or anything you want to say, other than obviously you want people to get out and vote for you, obviously?
Obviously, get out and vote for me, but for Sherri Garrett. I will also be at the coffee run every Saturday from 9 until 12, starting next week.
Wow.
So if anybody wants to come and meet me, the coffee run is a coffee shop over on Manorville Highway.
Oh, wow.
Across from the Amber Restaurant.
Wow, that is real easy to remember. The Amber Restaurant in Halls, every Saturday from 9 to 12, you'll be at the Coffee Run Coffee Shop. Well, you know what?
Yes.
I may just have to, I'm an early riser anyway. I may just have to make one of those runs. I'm making a note of that right now.
They've got some amazing coffee.
That's fantastic. Saturdays, 9 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Starting next Saturday, not today.
Starting next Saturday. Well, I'll be there today, but I'm actually having a meeting there today. So.
Fantastic. Well, Sherri, good luck to you. Any of those people that you hear that say that I'm a bad guy, just tell them I believe 50% of what you hear and don't believe the other 50%. So
I was raised like that. I make my own opinions. So.
I appreciate it. You have a great day. Have a great campaign, and we'll talk to you in the summer.
You too. Thank
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.